Are Chelsea in danger of slipping out of the top four of the Premier League? Something's not right at Chelsea. And also, in reaction to that game against Leicester and that last minute win for Spurs, there's a very different feeling to just a week ago. It's looking very, very precarious for Chelsea. For Chelsea to drop out of that top four, Hugh, of course, that means two teams have got to go above them. Arsenal have got 3 games in hand on Chelsea. If they win those games, they're level on points with them. It doesn't feel right with Chelsea, and it's starting to feel pretty good for the North London clubs.
Do you know what the funny thing is? We look at the game in hand at the top of the Premier League right now, and it's almost like the teams in 5th, 6th and 7th are Manchester City or Liverpool. Like, they're not that good. They're not just going to win every single game. So let's just forget about the games in hand. Yes, it looks like Chelsea will be in a difficult position. And yes, I agree. It's going to be more for them now about the top 4 than it is about winning the Premier League title. But I think for 2 of those teams to overtake Chelsea, that's going to be a really big ask. Chelsea are still a quality team. They still have fantastic players. Injuries are affecting them, particularly at wing back. But I still think they're going to have enough to win enough games, to get enough points to make sure they do finish in the top 4. The other teams just aren't consistent enough as far as I'm concerned.
But what about, let me add this to it. You've got Arsenal not playing in Europe, Spurs not playing in Europe anymore. Surely that plays a factor in it. Chelsea versus Spurs this weekend. A week ago, there's no way Spurs win that game. Now we look at it with the way that Chelsea are playing at the moment, and it's looking very, very different. Surely you can admit that. Give Spurs and Arsenal some kind of credit. It could happen.
Spurs were losing at Leicester with 94 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. This idea that because they managed to turn it round in an incredible fashion at the end of that game.
They dominated that game though, Hugh.
Yeah, cool. And Leicester scored goals with ease. The 2 goals that they scored were so basic. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, back of the net. Yeah, there was fortune involved in those goals, but I think they also show that there is a bit of a weakness in that Spurs defence. They're not as good as maybe the 9 unbeaten games in the Premier League make them look, because the only team of note for me that they've played, Leicester are a mid-table side, is Liverpool, and that was a 2-2 draw. I'm yet to be convinced by them against really credible opposition, and Chelsea are that. They're not playing well. It's a good time to meet them, but Spurs haven't shown us as yet that they're this team that's going to win all their games in hand and going to finish 3rd in the Premier League, above Chelsea even. Come on, do me a favour. They're okay at best.
Concentrating on Chelsea for a second, and feeling a little bit snide, a bit tetchy. Everyone's a little bit too tired at the moment. Tuchel himself has come out and said that himself. And if you look at someone like Broja at Southampton, who's currently Chelsea's top striker with 5 goals this season, despite playing for Southampton, something's not right there. What is the big problem here, Hugh?
I think Thomas Tuchel needs to he needs to change a little bit as a coach and as a person. We see his reactions in the dugout every time one of his players makes a mistake. It's obvious to everyone inside the stadium how angry he is. He doesn't have an issue with criticising his players at all publicly. And for me, he might just need to learn that this group of players clearly don't take well to that. You know, they aren't performing. We've spoken about it before. There are too many inconsistent players there. Even Lukaku this season has added himself to that list. But you think of Ziyech and Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi in that forward line, there are players that don't regularly deliver. We know how much talent they have. It isn't clicking at the moment. And instead of maybe putting his arms around his squad and saying, look, we're in this together. The Premier League title race is gone. Let's be steady here. He seems just really irate and angry with them, you know, and yeah. I don't think that works for this squad.
I totally agree. I think it's something I haven't seen that ever work, coming back to Broja and just this Chelsea academy, which has been so fruitful for them. But so many of these players don't play for them. You know, like some Gallagher, Abraham's gone, who could have been of use this season. You've got Lamptey, you've got Livramento.
Gilmour's on loan, yeah.
Yeah, Guehi's gone to Crystal Palace as well, and they've had problems with centre-back positions as well. I'm looking at Chelsea, and I think we all thought this is a team that could win a title race. I'm now looking at them, and I'm feeling like they're a bit of a cup team.
No, listen, I totally agree with you on that. They are, in a one-match scenario, I think, a very solid side and not a team that you'd want to play. They're capable of producing against any team in the world. I think when you look at the academy and what it's done over the last few seasons, it has produced some fantastic players. But you'd have to say some of those players you've mentioned do deserve an opportunity to at least have a season to show whether they could be Chelsea players in the future. And this squad, as we mentioned, isn't performing to a particular level that you would say, look, you've got to stick with a Pulisic, you've got to stick with a Hakim Ziyech. Why not? have one of your own out of the academy and follow the model of many of the other big clubs in Europe and have someone like Armando Broja, 17 appearances for Southampton, 5 goals in your team. Now, I've been listening to Ralph Hasenhüttl, the Southampton manager, a little bit earlier on today, say he wants to keep him at Southampton, saying Chelsea aren't going to love you like we're going to love you, essentially. And I think that's a fair comment as well, because he could go back to Chelsea. If he has one bad year, he's going to get sold and maybe end up somewhere he doesn't want to be.
It's a club that's caught in the middle. It's caught between not being good enough to really challenge with Liverpool and Man City and a little bit too good for the rest. The next few games, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Newcastle, Norwich, Brentford, Southampton, Leeds. Those fixtures will be very, very helpful. I know a lot of those teams will be scrapping for as many points as possible, but really Chelsea should have enough and should be able to at the very least finish in the top 4. Do you agree?
Absolutely. A quality side on their day. As I say, most of the Premier League couldn't handle them as long as they show up. And I think they will get back to form. Injuries have really hampered them. And as players come back into that squad, they will improve. Hi, I'm Hugh Wisencroft from ESPN's Football Forecast. Make sure you're subscribed. You can follow all of our predictions throughout the season and get some other great analysis from our big names as well.